Please be seated. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting of Middlesbrough Council. First item on the agenda, apologies for absence. Do we have any?
We do indeed, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Blythe, Harvey, Hubbard, McIntyre, Mohan, Goodchild and Morstan.
Any further apologies? Can we note those? Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do we have any? Agenda item 3, minutes of the previous council meeting of the 5th of December. Can we agree those minutes are accurate? Thank you. Agenda item 4, announcements, communications. I have 2 announcements for this meeting. The first one is a welcome. Following the recent by-election on the 13th of December 2018, Councillor Janet Thompson was elected as Labour Councillor for the Brambles and Thornbury Ward. I'd like to welcome Councillor Thompson to her first meeting and congratulate her on the results. Thank you. Okay, the second announcement is a little more sad. It is with great sadness that I have to announce the death of Chris Robson, former councillor and mayor of Middlesbrough. Chris was the mayor of Middlesbrough from 1989 to 1990, and he was Middlesbrough's 126th mayor. Chris was chairman of the district services and monitoring review committees. His interests within the council included housing, community development, leisure and monitoring. Chris was also a former director of East Middlesbrough Community Ventures and a member of Phoenix Housing Association. In 1959, he married his wife, Marlene, who is also sadly deceased. They had 2 daughters and 1 son. Chris's interests included museums and the arts, and he was a Middlesbrough football supporter for over 47 years. He even attended the match on the afternoon of his wedding. One of his highlights was to see Middlesbrough Football Club play Chelsea at Wembley. Please join me in a minute's silence. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Agenda item 5. Questions from members of the public. The first question is for the executive member for Economic Development and Infrastructure, and it's from W. Tovey. Mr. Tovey, are you here? Yeah. Okay, would you like to ask your question, Mr. Tovey?
Thank you, Chairman. The Nunthorpe Grange Design Code, which was put out for consultation and closed on the 31st of August, states, and I quote, Policy H29 outlines the following requirements. Land is allocated at Nunthorpe, south of Gisborough Road, for a maximum of 250 predominantly 3- and 4-bedroomed detached and semi-detached dwellings and associated access arrangements, unquote. The planning officer stated at the November Parish Council meeting that there would now be 350 houses and also a GP practice facility being considered for the site. On this basis, it seems entirely logical that the consultation process should be recommenced if Middlesbrough Council wishes its consultation process to have any credibility. And if the consultation is not to be reopened, how does Councillor Young propose to explain to residents what happened to the Council's commitment to community involvement?
Thank you very much, Mr. Tovey. Councillor Young, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As ever, I'll provide written responses as well. The plan is for 250 houses. There may be potential for 350, but we are planning for 250. And that is in the local plan and the draft master plan. The addition of a doctor's surgery would not affect the number of houses, and I think would be an amenity, an important local amenity.
Thank you. The next question is from, I believe it's a Mr. Walker, and it's for the Deputy Mayor and Executive Member for City Centre Strategy. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor C.M. Rooney, Deputy Mayor and Executive Member for City Centre Strategy. My question concerns the regeneration of Centre Square in the town. Middlesbrough residents are angry about the Council's policy, which includes, but is not limited to, the building of plush offices in Centre Square for housing public servants. Has Middlesbrough Council secured a tenant for the additional Grade A office building that is currently under construction?
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Councillor Rooney, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. The buildings won't be completed till August of this year. I think the office market has been transformed in Middlesbrough. We are now competing with any regional and indeed wider locations. We've had 26 inquiries, both from local and national companies, about occupying the second office. The inquiries equate to nearly 500,000 square feet of space. We've only got just under 39,000 square feet of space available in Building 2. So the outlook is very promising. There are no contractual leases as yet, but announcements will be made later this year. It's clear the companies want to make announcements and clear that they will have commercial confidentiality, and that must play a part in their deliberations because they have staff, they have premises, they have leases and business considerations to undertake. I do hope everybody here can understand the need for commercial confidentiality. We have had trouble with some councillors in the past who don't seem to understand that principle. And I think the confidence in our offer is clear. Jobs in the city centre, some 3,000 hoped for, will clearly bolster our retail sector, and also should have effects on public transport as more people will be travelling to work and live in the town. Thank you.
The next question is from J.M. McClintock, and it's for the Executive Member for Economic Development and Infrastructure. Mr. McClintock, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Chair. In the opinion of Middlesbrough Council, has the new Middlesbrough Publication Local Plan already come into effect, or do the Housing Local Plan 2014 and all the superseded policies listed in Appendix A of the 2018 Middlesbrough Local Plan remain in force until the Planning Inspector has concluded her or his review? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McClintock. Councillor Young, would you like to respond?
Yeah, the answer is it's a bit of both. The Housing Local Plan of 2014 is a statutorily adopted development plan, but the 2018 local plan does have weight in the decision-making process up until its adoption. And it's standard practice to gradually insert the 2018 local plan policies into guidance and into our decision-making process up until that adoption process, at the time of the adoption.
Thank you. We now have a number of questions that have been submitted by members of the public who unfortunately are not able to attend tonight's meeting and have asked that I read them out. The first two questions are for the Deputy Mayor and Executive Member for City Centre Strategy. So I'll read both questions out, and the Deputy Mayor can either respond or give a written response to the person who has asked the questions. So the first one is from Mrs. M. Walker. The question is, how often does the council undertake a count of empty office space in central Middlesbrough, and what was the result of the most recent count? The second question is from Adam P. Walker. What are the head lease costs of these two new office buildings to the taxpayers of Middlesbrough over the 35-year period, and what happens at the end of the lease? Councillor Rooney, would you like to respond or just give a written response?
I'll respond, Chair. There may be a written response later. I think the count, we don't do a specific count, but we do work with owners of empty properties and investors to facilitate and enable development of appropriate new uses. As part of the Grade A office development in Centre Square East, the report was dated the 21st of February 2017, Chair. The results of those were 17 out of 20 offices are either in the process or are being brought back into use. 28,892 square metres of floor space back into use, 442 jobs, 422 residential units, 159 hotel beds. Investment in empty properties amounts to some £47 million in the town, and we will be looking again at empty properties, but the current progress is good in all but a few private owned properties, and we will provide updated information when we have it. I think in the investment prospectus is delivering results in this town.
Thank you, Councillor. The next question is from Ms. McCardle, and it's for the Executive Member for Culture and Communities. What was the full scope of public consultation, including any market testing, that led to the proposed rebranding logo and strapline? Councillor Thompson, would you like to respond or give a written response?
Chair, I'm advised that Ms. McCardle's asked for a written response, so I'm happy to comply with that.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is from Mr. C. Gordon, and it's for the Executive Member for Economic Development and Infrastructure. Does Middlesbrough Council Station Way / Dixon's Bank widening, noise and vibration assessment, AAC/251434-00/R01, carried out by Arup, take account of the fact that the A172 on Dixon's Bank is to be moved approximately 4 metres nearer to residents on the east side of Dixon's Bank, between Station Way / A1... Yeah? Okay, between Stainton Way / A172 traffic lights and St Cuthbert Avenue Junction. Councillor Young, do you wish to respond?
I'll provide a written response, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 6, Mayor's Statement and Report. Mayor Budd.
Thank you, Chair. As my colleagues' executive reports get more and more comprehensive, there's less and less for me to say, and some of you might be pleased about that. Thank you very much. I think there is one thing that I do need to say, and this is not to provoke an argument or a discussion, but you can't fail to have noticed the Prime Minister's Brexit deal was heavily defeated yesterday. Well, how could he not know that? So I don't want to open up a discussion about Brexit. I'm not going to give you my opinion of it at the moment. But I think you will recall that back in October 2016, not long after the decision was taken by referendum, that we brought a report here about the implications of it for Tees Valley, for Middlesbrough and for our residents. We had hoped to bring a further report updating that. That has proved quite difficult because we've been waiting for this vote to go through or not. We will bring it to a future meeting. I think that's really quite important. If I can just refresh your memory for a moment about what was in that original report, it was very much an update about what had happened since the referendum up to the time of the writing of the report in October 2016, and it looked at the impact on the Tees Valley economy. It looked at funding and investment opportunities and potential replacement funding for the EU funding. It looked at the impact of regulations on businesses and on ourselves as a council. Looked at exports, foreign direct investment, attraction and retention of talent, which was about employing people and had an impact with the university, and international knowledge transfer, which again had an impact on research in this area and some of the research institutes here and the university. So we had hoped to get a considerable amount more information to answer some of the questions that were posed about that. There isn't a lot of clarity, to be quite honest. We will attempt to write a report which brings things up to date with an impact about the impact on the Combined Authority, Middlesbrough Council and our residents. So there are still a lot of unanswered questions, as I'm sure everybody here knows. And as I say, we'll bring a report to the next meeting. I'd be really interested if anybody who's got views on that or information or as a particular look back to the October 2016 report and has a suggestion about where we go in the future. I really would, rather than have those after the event, if you would like to take part in it beforehand, that will be quite useful. But obviously, you're perfectly at liberty to react to whatever the report says. But I hope we'll have that next time. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mayor Budd. Councillor Young.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just curious to know why Mayor Budd has chosen not to talk about one of the most political pressing matters in Teesside at the moment, which is buying back Teesside Airport. The vote is next Thursday. Will you be back in Bensdale? Thanks.
Mayor Budd.
Yeah, you'll be aware that I'm subject to a number of non-disclosure agreements, not my idea, but the Mayor's, and there are certain things I can and cannot say. Believe it or not. The business plan was issued at 5 o'clock this afternoon. You may have got it beforehand. I didn't. I'll be looking at all 294 pages of it, some of which I've had before and some of which I haven't. I'll also be waiting to get the answers to a number of questions that I've posed, which I haven't had yet. I'll also be considering the confidential meeting we had this lunchtime with a potential operator, which again led to more questions. So, yes, I will make a decision. I haven't made it yet.
Supplementary, if I can.
No, you get one question, Councillor. You can give a supplementary to the answer, but you can't ask a separate question.
It is supplementary.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I spoke to the office of the Tees Valley Mayor, and he said that you first had sight of the plan on the 20th of December, which means that you've had plenty of time to read it by now. And the leader of Hartlepool Council has already came out and said he's backing the plan, so why aren't you? Thank you.
Mayor Budd.
We did not have all of the plan on the 20th of December. Not true.
Okay, no further questions for Mayor Budd. We move on. Sorry, Councillor, I didn't see a hand up there.
Thank you. In your response there to Councillor Young, you referenced non-disclosure agreements. I think it's only right to ask you, did you sign a non-disclosure agreement in relation to the mishandling of the Stanhope Castle?
Councillor, that is totally inappropriate. Please sit down.
I think it's a legitimate
I'm sorry,
question.
Councillor, it is not appropriate. It is not appropriate whatsoever. That was not mentioned in the Mayor's report. And I'm afraid advice has been given to people. A lot of the information regarding that is sub judice at the moment due to issues that are still ongoing. So please, it is not an appropriate question at this particular moment in time. I ask you to sit down, Councillor.
That's the problem, Chair. Nothing has been
Councillor, please will you sit down? Councillor, please will you sit down? I'm asking you, I'm ruling, I want you to sit down. It is not appropriate for this question. Councillor, please.
Because it's
I'm asking you to sit down. Councillor, will you please sit down? Councillor.
There are videos online, there are transcripts online.
Right, I move that this councillor be not heard further. It has been seconded. I'm sorry, Councillor. Please, will you refrain from the line of topic that you were currently speaking on? I'm asking you. Right, okay. It's been moved, it's been seconded that the councillor be not further heard. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Okay, councillor, it's been moved, it's been seconded by the council that you not be heard any further. No, it's been moved, councillor, that's it. Councillor, what part of this meeting don't you understand? What's on? Right, okay. Councillor, I've asked you not to follow this line of questioning. It's been put to the council that you do not speak further on it. It's been agreed, it's been voted on and agreed. I'm asking, one more time, I'm asking you to sit down. Right, right. Okay, I will now move a motion for the councillor to leave the chamber. Do we have a seconder? All those in favour, please show. All those in favour. Right. All those against. Okay, right. It's been moved and agreed by the council that you leave the chamber, councillor. No, it doesn't work like that, councillor. It doesn't. It's got nothing to do with that. There is nothing, councillor. What part of this constitution don't you understand? It's been moved and seconded and voted on that you cease this line of topic of questioning. It's also been moved that you now leave the chamber. Okay, if you refuse to leave the meeting, councillor, it's been voted on. I'm going to adjourn the meeting forthwith till you leave the chamber. Are you going to leave? Are you going to leave? Okay, right. I'm adjourning this meeting now. Okay, everybody. Apologies for that little disruption there, but we are all back in now and the meeting is going to continue. Can I just remind everybody in the chamber, especially members of the public, that this is a business meeting of the council, and while I understand in certain issues emotions will be running high, I would respect the people respect the council and allow us to conduct our business without any interruptions, and I hope you can sort of do that for us. So moving on, agenda item 7. Deputy Mayor and Executive Member reports. Before I go into the questions, Councillor Carr of Children's Social Services has a statement that he would like to read out. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to say this. It's unfortunate and ironic in the light of the events of the last 15 minutes or so, because if some councillors had been less impetuous, they might have had an opportunity to ask questions that they would have wanted to. I'm reading this statement as an addendum to my executive report, and I hope you will understand why that is when I read it. There's been recent social media coverage and emails circulated about Middlesbrough's involvement in Stanhope Castle School in County Durham and the attendance by Mr. James Bromley, the Strategic Director of Finance, Governance and Support at the Independent Inquiry on Child Sex Abuse, brackets, Accountability and Reparations session, close brackets, on the 10th of December. Given the context and the seriousness of the comments and allegations that have been made online, I did want to make this statement, as I say, as an addendum to my executive report. Abuse of children, whether physical or sexual, is utterly reprehensible and will be condemned by all right-thinking people. That is why one of our most important statutory duties is to protect children and young people. Government nationally and councils locally have developed safeguarding policies and practices to this end. In Middlesbrough, the council takes its responsibilities as a corporate parent very seriously, as evidenced elsewhere in this report and in the revisions to the role of the Corporate Parenting Board, which are on later in our agenda. Precisely because of the seriousness with which we take child protection, it's important that comment from members and in the media, whether social or mainstream, is accurate and measured and does not seek to provoke uninformed and inappropriate responses, which in some cases have been aggressive and threatening. The Independent Inquiry on Child Sexual Abuse is a national inquiry and was established in 2015. Middlesbrough Council has given evidence to that part of the inquiry that relates to claims made about alleged abuse at Stanhope Castle School in County Durham. Middlesbrough Council volunteered to be a core participant in the inquiry in order to be as transparent as possible with the inquiry. Some background information. Stanhope Castle School is located, as I've said, in County Durham, and it was run, I believe, from the 1940s, but it was certainly an approved school run by the Home Office until 1973. In 1973, it was transferred to Teesside County Borough Council, and in 1974, on local government reorganisation, it was transferred to Cleveland County Council, which ran it as what was described as a community home with education. It closed in 1981. When Cleveland County was abolished in 1996, responsibility for all its liabilities and assets was distributed to the 4 new unitary authorities. Middlesbrough Council, amongst many other things, became the designated authority in respect of Stanhope Castle School, inheriting its historic liabilities. In effect, this meant that the council was responsible on behalf of the other 3 authorities within the former Cleveland boundary for meeting any insurance claims arising from the school's operation. So to be clear, this was an institution which has been closed for 38 years. It was never run by Middlesbrough Council, nor was it located in Middlesbrough. No Middlesbrough Council was involved in decision-making relating to the school. Children were sent to the school from authorities across Teesside and from across the whole of the north of England. Only a small proportion, as far as we know, of the children attending Stanhope Castle School were ever from Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough's role in this, therefore, is as a designated authority, not as an operator for this institution. Former residents of the school have approached Middlesbrough Council as the designated authority to seek compensation through the civil justice system for the abuse they suffered when they were resident at Stanhope Castle. It is in that role as a potential defendant to a civil claim that Middlesbrough has responded to these survivors, and Mr. Bromley's evidence at the inquiry reflected that context. Middlesbrough Council has sought to investigate the civil claims as they have been submitted. A total of 34 claims have been received since 2001 for sexual and physical abuse. 12 of those claims have been settled, and only 2 claims are still being pursued by solicitors on behalf of claimants. As the local authority administering the historic liabilities of the Home Office and Teesside Council and Cleveland County Council, Middlesbrough's role is to take legal advice and to follow the law as it stands, and this is what we've done. Despite the length of time since the abuse was alleged to have taken place, on receipt of letters of claim, Middlesbrough, through its solicitors, has sought to investigate the claims. It has searched for documents and tried to contact witnesses. Given the period of delay, it's not surprising that in the majority of cases, the Council, its solicitors and insurers have not been able to obtain independent evidence to verify all of the allegations made. and nor have the solicitors for the potential claimants. Those against whom the allegations are made are now either dead or uncontactable. However, no one would deny that there's clearly a deeply disturbing human element in this. Mr. Bromley reflected this in his evidence. He said, I quote, "On behalf of Middlesbrough Council, I would like to express our deepest sympathy and apologies for any abuse that occurred in Stanhope Castle." Prior to attending the inquiry, Mr. Bromley briefed the Executive Member for Finance and Government and the Mayor on the fact that he was attending the hearing to give evidence, and informed them of the position he intended to take in consultation with the Council's lawyers, including the issuing of the general apology, which I've just mentioned. He did not seek a specific decision from members, but the Mayor concurred with the proposed course of action. The inquiry itself is expected to last several years. However, there may be interim recommendations as early as May this year, which may include suggestions for changes to the law. While the Council has acted on the professional advice of its lawyers and insurers and has sought to apply the law as it currently stands, Mr. Bromley's evidence and the statement of the Council's QC made it clear that the Council would review its position on claims should the law change. We would welcome any positive change, and we would seek further legal advice if and when the law does change. I hope that it's clear to members and the public what the actual position is in relation to our responsibilities as a designated authority for claims concerning Stanhope Castle School when it was operated by the Home Office, Teesside Council and/or Cleveland County Council up to 1981. I would urge members not to indulge in false and inflammatory claims that are clearly at variance with the facts. Attempting to use child abuse for political gain is not a good look. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Young.
What you said there, and I appreciate many of the sentiments that were in your comments. My question is simply, why are we hearing about this now? And it seems very much as a knee-jerk reaction to the stuff that's been said on social media. As councillors, we have to justify our own positions and the decisions that Middlesbrough Council has made to members of the public. And it's been quite difficult for the last however many days to justify that when we aren't in possession of the facts ourselves. I think a simple members' briefing at the point that the Mayor and the Member for Finance found out would have been helpful and perhaps avoid some of the situation that we've had tonight.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you for that. It's not the practice in this authority or indeed any other authority that I'm aware of for civil cases to be discussed in full council. If I can just respond to the question, it is not the practice, and it is the practice that there are issues that are dealt with professionally by our solicitors and insurers and other financial advisors. To be honest, I only became aware of this on Monday, and as an issue, and as the council meeting is tonight, what the decision was taken that I would provide this addendum to the report, and that's why it's been done on that basis. The position earlier was that members were consulted on a course of action that officers were taken. That is, so far as I'm aware, standard practice in these sort of civil claims. It is not something which is a political football. It's not something which is appropriate for safeguarding reasons and other reasons to address in full public meetings, in my opinion. Nevertheless, because we are where we are, I've tried to put the record straight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I remind members of the public, please, I have asked you once if you can respect the council and not interrupt or shout out when a member of the council is making a statement. So please, can I ask you to be quiet? Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to reiterate that I think that a briefing would have been very, very helpful. We actually saw this on the media, and it made me feel cold, to be honest, because we knew nothing at all about it. It could have been done confidentially, Councillor Carr. We wouldn't have had to have the public involved, and had you told us it was confidential, the members would have kept it confidential. I really do feel that just some information would have been very, very helpful. Just a small briefing to tell us what was going to happen or what was happening. Thank you.
Do you wish to respond, Councillor, or have you already answered it?
I mean, I note the comments made, and I think I've made a response.
Thank you. Councillor Lawton.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Carr, who decided and when did they decide on the current Middlesbrough Council position of limiting liability in claims?
The Council has been subject to a number of claims, as I've indicated in the addendum to the report. It's normal in response to claims that our solicitors and our insurers, who are the people who will pay for anything, would look at our liability in relation to that. It is not appropriate to simply accept statements that have been made. It's a civil case, it's subject to court proceedings, evidence has to be presented. And the view of our solicitors was that we would make claims and respond to claims, and as I've indicated over a number of years, some of these claims have been settled, but the claims are subject to issues of liability, of timescale, and particularly of evidence. If we are not able to get evidence, then it's very difficult to respond positively to a claim. You've got to remember, as I indicated, the school has been closed for 38 years. Some of the claims, as I understand it, go back 50 years and more. The evidence isn't there, the documents are not there, the files are not there, or only partially there. And so it is very difficult. I understand from a claimant's point of view, as much as from any other point of view, why that happens. But as a public authority with responsibilities for public funds, it is incumbent upon the people who act on our behalf only to respond to cases if there is evidence to support them.
Thank you, Councillor.
I've continued to ask this question, a follow-up on this. I've got a question. Do you want to ask them later on the council?
No, Councillor, you've been. No, you can have. You've had one question. Councillor, you can have a supplementary question, but it can only be relevant to the answer. Say what? I'm not. There's nothing. Councillor, we've adjourned this meeting once because of councillors' behaviour in the chamber. I don't want to do it again. It's got nothing to do with that, Councillor.
Chair, I wonder if you could consult with the monitoring officer. But given that Councillor Carr's statement was a verbal statement, I think that Councillor Lawton might be entitled to more than one question. But
no, he's entitled to one question and one supplementary, Councillor.
Okay.
There's nothing to hide. We're not. Nobody's hiding anything. We have procedures how we run. We have procedures how council meetings are run. Councillor, we have proceedings how these councils are run. You're allowed to ask one question. You can ask a supplementary. I've already told you that, and it has to be relevant to the question that's been the response that you've been given to answer. You can't. I know, but I will rule it out of order if it's not.
We go on with this, please. Councillor Carr, specifically, is there a time limitation, as you've suggested, applied to any claims? And if so, what is that time limitation?
Chair, you're asking me legal questions and I'm not qualified to answer. My understanding, thank you, I am actually trying to help you, Councillor Lawton, so please don't jump up and down at me. My understanding is that the legal requirement for claims to be made is within 3 years of a person attaining adulthood. Now, clearly for claims that preceded, that come from prior to 1981, that timescale has long passed. But it's also, that's not the only issue. The issue also relates to evidence. And I think my understanding is that it's both of those issues, as the timescale and the evidence available is what has determined actions. If it had been the case that there was substantial evidence, then the issue of timescale would have been more important. But my understanding, and I'm not the expert, but my understanding is that if their evidence isn't available, as I think I tried to explain previously, then it is not reasonable to make judgments involving public money, however concerned we may feel about the feelings of individuals. It's not possible to expend public money without evidence to justify it in a claim of that sort, and that is why the position has been reached that it is.
No, councillor, you're allowed your one supplementary, and I've allowed you it. Now, councillor, why can you not abide by the rules of this council? Councillor, you have already asked these questions, and you have been told you were getting a written response to them. Let's go through it all again. I call a motion for the councillor not to be heard further. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Councillor, it is unanimous that it's been agreed unanimous by the council that you stop speaking. Please, councillor. Right, okay. I now move the motion that the councillor be asked to leave the meeting. All those in favour, please show. This is... Well, you're not going to get the... All those in favour of the councillor not leaving the meeting? Oh, no. Okay, that motion is carried. I now adjourn the meeting once again. Councillor, will you please leave the meeting? I'm going straight. I do apologise for this, councillors, but we are relocating straight to the Mandela. I'm not putting up with this atrocious behaviour. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Third time of asking. We were on with executive member reports. Councillor Card had given a statement.
I know it's not easy for us to keep moving in and out of rooms, but Councillor Lawton has left there now, and there's space for the public in that room. So can we please reconvene the meeting where the public are? Right. This is supposed to be a public meeting, and the public are supposed to be allowed to witness this.
No, I'm going to move that we stay in this room. We've moved twice now. If there's further disruptions, I don't want to be doing the same thing over again, councillor. I do sympathise with you. I understand your sentiments entirely. I think under normal circumstances, with normal members, with normal actions being taken by people, it would be perfectly acceptable. I believe after tonight, of what's gone on so far, I feel much more comfortable. We're now an hour and a quarter into the meeting. We've barely started on the agenda. And I think just for expediency, to ensure we can get through the business tonight, I move we stay in this room. Okay, so...
Can I just remind people that we have got the camera, so if people want to see the meeting online, which I'm sure it will be online, they'll be able to see what's happening.
Okay, right, moving on. Executive members' questions. First one's for Councillor Rooney, Councillor Charlie Rooney. It's from Councillor Arundale, Tees Am. Councillor Arundale.
Yeah, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Tees Advanced Manufacturing Park. Although I'm very much a supporter of this scheme, I'm disappointed at the rate of progress. Given the Advanced Manufacturing Park was announced in a blaze of publicity in Mayor Mellon's reign, apart from the Welding Institute, none of the promised well-paid jobs for the people of Middlesbrough have materialised. Why is everything taking so long after those initial announcements were made? If you say it was the land remediation, surely you must have known about that when those announcements were made. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Rooney.
It has taken some time, and I wouldn't say only the Weldon Institute. It's a multi-million-pound business which has international ramifications for the area, and the Weldon Institute is attracting other people there. There's already planning permission in. There has been some delay with the remediation. I think there was some 7 million allocated for that. That was estimated to be enough, but the land has been a bit worse than was estimated, so that's going to cost more, so we have to work on that. But hopefully, by the end of this month, the construction should start on there. And thank you for your interest in it.
Okay, next question is for Councillor Rostron. It's Councillor Janet Thompson and Theatre Success. Councillor Thompson.
Question withdrawn.
Okay, thank you. The next set of questions are for Councillor Michael Thompson. Two people are asking a question on the topic of Middlesbrough Place brand. So I'll invite you both to ask your question and Councillor Thompson will give a single response. So, Councillor McGee. Withdraw, okay. Councillor Chris Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. Can you please advise which people were consulted on the logo? We were not consulted, and none of our residents seem to have been consulted. Wouldn't it have been a good idea to ask community councils about the rebrand? No one that we've spoken to thinks it is a good logo. In fact, most people are asking what it means, or saying it doesn't make sense. We think positive people, positive place would have been much better. As for going to Hemingway Design, we have an arts college on our doorstep, we have a university, we have a college. Could we not have had a competition and offered, say, £2,000 for a chosen design, and then asked the people to vote for the design that they liked the best? I had a resident in my house this morning. I showed him the logo and asked him if he'd seen it. He hadn't. But when he saw it, he said, I wish they'd give me 50,000 to design something like that. He said, I think can do, but we won't. Another waste of over £50,000.
Councillor Thompson.
I am grateful for the question, and it's not the first time somebody suggested the other day that I trawl through the Gazette online and get some views on people. I must admit, I tend to avoid doing that because those remarks in there are particularly positive. Can I just, in response to that, can I just read, and you will find people who weren't consulted. There were a number of people who we engaged, and mainly in the business community, but lots of residents as well. And you will have seen in the report, I'm sure if you've read it, there are over 1,000 comments from local events in Nima. There was a survey. Sorry, Councillor Young, did you want to contribute to that?
On to you. I said circa 1,000, not over 1,000. That's what it says.
Circa 1,000.
Oh.
Welcome. Proud of Middlesbrough. Can I just read?
You asked for my.
Sorry, are you going to let me finish?
Excuse me.
Finish the question?
Excuse me, no dialogue between people, please. If anybody wants to say anything, please come through the chair. Councillor Thompson.
I think Councillor Rothman's obviously having an influence on some other people. We've got a statement here from Charlie Netley, maybe known to you. I'm not sure whether he's a Labour spot or not, but he's head of commercial and marketing for AV Dawson and chair of the Chapman Institute of Marketing, that's a Freudian sleep, Institute of Marketing in the North East. And what he says in his statement is, if Middlesbrough is to compete, it needs to invest, not only physically, but in its communications and the way it presents itself. There is now a new energy and ambition coming from the region. We need to pull together and maximise on this. A place brand for Middlesbrough should do exactly that. It says we are distinctive from anywhere else, creating local pride, attracting inward investment, and ultimately enabling the area to grow, become more successful. If as a community we cannot not all get together, we become all the more powerful if we can get together. As a Teesside business with 80 years of heritage in Middlesbrough, we are keen to see the region prosper, not only for our business, but for our 240 employees and their families and the wider community. As a regional logistics business, we cannot operate as an island, To be successful, attracting new business through Teesside by road, rail, land and sea, we need the local area and the businesses in the region to prosper. The place brand is therefore of real importance to us and the wider business community. Middlesbrough Council has engaged with members of the local business community, including AV Dogs, at points throughout the process, and has listened to and acted on the feedback we have collectively provided. We believe the brand narrative is strong and fit for purpose, providing a relevant, differentiated and inspiring message that captures Middlesbrough, what it is, what it was, and what it will be in the future. And he does point out that brand identities and logos are always going to get a mixed reception. I do take Councillor Hobson's points. We could perhaps have had a referendum, and we could perhaps take some advice from the Conservatives and have conduct such a referendum. The important thing is, how are we perceived outside is the important thing. How do people outside of here perceive us? And we've had some bad press, to be fair. We've had a bit of a kick-in, to be perfectly honest with you. And we've got to counter that. And some of the narrative that come out of the research that Wayne Hemingway did. And what I would say is that Wayne's very keen to come here and have a briefing. And I hope, Councillor, genuinely hope that you will come along. Because some of the stuff that he found was genuinely fascinating and really enlightening. So, positive place, positive people, yeah, I mean, that sounds good to me as well. But if we asked out there, what strapline would you come up with, I'm sure we'd get thousands of different ones. And you have to make a decision at the end of the day, and somebody has to make that decision. But the important thing is that we get on board with the brand logo. And don't forget, this is not about the council, this is about this place. This is about Middlesbrough, attracting people to visit, to stay, to live here, to work here and invest here. So I hope, despite your reservations, and I do understand them, that you will get on board. In fact, I feel sure that you will.
A supplementary.
I'm sorry, Councillor, the meeting is really going on. We've only got, we're supposed to have 30 minutes for the questions, with the option to extend it to 45. We're at the 45 minutes already, and I've still got quite a number of questions to go through. So no, I'm sorry, I'm not allowing any supplementaries for to help us to try and get through this business. So the next item on the next question, again for Councillor Thompson, is Councillor Jeanette Walker, Hemlington Christmas. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one actually. Councillor Thompson, first of all, is regarding on page 7, item 16, Christmas in Hemlington. I'd just like to say thank you very much for attending our annual event. Volunteers and staff and residents were really pleased to have you and the opportunity to meet you at that event. I must say that, you know, I'm pleased you were there and you had some nice photo opportunities as well, which was good, and you spent some money while you were there. Thank you very much. It's the first time in many years that the event was totally in the Hemlington Library Hub, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad it's been pointed out. Our hubs are very important to our communities. And I'd like to say thanks especially to the staff and especially to Joe Harrison, who is actually the manager there, who actually made the library available to us and moved all the books and everything out of the way to make it as big as possible to accommodate the stalls. It was really, really good. Plus, I'd like to thank Jill from everybody involved. She was the one who actually did the Santa's Grotto that you took a photograph of. One thing I'm really disappointed in is the fact you didn't get a picture of Councillor Elves with yourself. So I'm really sorry you didn't see that in your report. But thank you very much for attending, and also the mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Very quickly, Chair, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel quite close to him in lots of ways because I started my housing career there, as you know, and I think what was amazing was that there were a lot of people there that I remembered being active there. It's a very, very active community, it's a very strong community feel there, and I know the hub contributes to that. With regards to the elves, I'm not sure as to their identities, but I'm sure that you will let me know.
Okay, next set of questions are for Councillor Lewis Young. First one, Councillor Allendale, draft Stainsby master plan. Councillor Allendale.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'd like to congratulate all involved in the consultation process for the Stainsby master plan. You did listen to people, and you have modified the plan after listening. Not everybody is happy, but I think the plan is a good compromise. Thank you for that consultation process.
Councillor Young. I'd just like to thank Councillor Arundel for his comments. Like I said, we did take it out to enhanced consultation. I like to think that the master plan is a product of that enhanced consultation. I know that not everyone will be happy, but I like to think that a lot of people are now happy that they've had their say and have positively shaped that master plan.
Next question for Councillor Young is from Councillor Coop, Transport Strategy. Councillor Coop.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is actually through the transport. It was just something that's been in the news recently about Middlesbrough Council and disabled badges. Middlesbrough Council, I understand, has actually had no prosecution of anybody with disabled badges. Councillor Lewis, Young and I started the campaign last year about parking in Middlesbrough in disabled badge spots. Not only misuse of disabled badge, misuse of disabled badge spots. Now I do accept the fact that a lot of them are not in Middlesbrough Council's property, but they're in supermarkets. My mother is very disabled, my partner is disabled, and we often have trouble getting into and out of parking spaces. I was just disappointed that Middlesbrough Council hasn't done that when we often I saw the other day someone parking in a disabled slot out of here, looking perfect fit to me. I understand that, but it covers various wide bits and pieces, but I'd like to work with Councillor Young to see if we can find a better way of doing this, and also I'd like to work with some of the supermarkets. I know Tesco's are doing something. I know one of their employees was actually threatened recently by a member of the public parking in there. So I think we need to bring it more to the attention of the public. We need to bring it more to the attention of people that it's unacceptable to park for the 2 seconds, 2 minutes or 2 hours in a disabled bay if you're perfectly fit to walk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief. I'm aware that this is an issue very close to Councillor Coop's heart, and I'm more than happy to arrange a meeting with the Councillor and relevant officers to look at what we can do next in that campaign and talk about soft power, what we can do with supermarkets to see that the disabled badges are in place they're enforced.
Thank you.
Final question for Councillor Young is from Councillor Udin, Future High Street Fund. Councillor Udin.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right. Next question is for Councillor Dobson, from Councillor Branston, School Readiness Team.
That's a question, actually. Yeah, I have a question. I note on page 3, oh yes it is, work readiness. On page 3 about the excellent progress made on reducing the rates of leaks. Went down from 12.3% to 4.2%. It's one of the best performances, regional and national. John would like to explain why, would you see?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dobson.
Yes, thank you for the question, for the comments, Councillor. It's a huge success, it really is. As you said, you quoted the figures. And it's down to our staff and our partners who've been working together. We're looking at rigorous tracking and monitoring of the needs. We've put bespoke packages in place, particularly for our vulnerable young people, those needing care. We had a briefing in that in corporate parenting. We're doing an awful lot of good work, and it's you know, the dividends are there to see. We need to continue doing that and give our children the best start in the workplace, the best school.
Thank you, Councillor. Next set of questions for Councillor Denise Rooney. First question is Councillor Story, Newham Grange Leisure Farm. Okay, thank you. Next question for Councillor Rooney is from Councillor Arundel, Safer Bus Station Award.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, well done to the staff at the bus station for yet again receiving this award. However, what I ask is, why are the executive going to reveal to the people of Middlesbrough their plans to change the bus station and what they intend putting on that site in some detail so that the proposed consultation process can take place? You have to ask, are you going to wait until after this year's elections before you unveil your plans to the public or fear of a backlash? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Denise Rooney.
Thank you, Chair. Right, just briefly, yes, thank you very much for the reference to the award. It was
very well received, and it is very much down to people who actually work within the bus station. It's very much people-centred. There's a very welcoming atmosphere down there, and the staff work extremely hard. So I will pass that back on to them. In terms of changing the bus station, there are no plans to do that. There are no plans at the moment to, and none that I am aware of, to do anything with the bus station. What I can promise you is, should I be standing here when that happens, and we have no idea what's going to happen, then my commitment to that bus station is we will have all of the facilities that we have now, the goodwill that we've got from the staff and the excellent services that we get there, and we will retain everything that this award is about.
Thank you, Councillor. Next question is for Councillor Nick Walker, and it's Councillor Chris Hobson, Middlesbrough College. Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a clarification, please, Councillor Walker. Item 17 on your report, it's about Middlesbrough College, and it says, it is expected that everything is ready to hand over to Middlesbrough College and the commencement of our hosting contract in January 2019. Can you just tell me a little bit more about, well, exactly what it is about, to be honest?
Councillor Walker.
Oh, right, Chair. Yeah, apologies, maybe I should have just put in that, or I thought it did indicate that this is an update. If you looked at my last report, there was more detail in that report. So in paragraph 20 of my report in December, I was reading out to you, ICT provides software great customer service and a stable around infrastructure across the council. One of the aims, I won't read all out, is to extend the service to external customers. So the arrangement with Middlesbrough colleges, they've got a need to make facilities for disaster recovery, so it comes to their systems, just like we do with ours. And rather than upgrading, investing and refurbishing their current systems, which they would have needed to do that, they came to Middlesbrough Council to use their systems, obviously not securely, so that their runs independent of ours. So that provides them with a financial saving, and it also brings us in income of 72,000 over 3 years. And I think this is something that we should be looking to do more of. Our ICT team are very keen on being part of the wider Middlesbrough regeneration. They've already provided support in the commercial tenants in Borehole 1 and 5. And certainly when the developments on the edge of Centre Square were announced, they very much wanted to be part of that. So it's simply the sharing of what we've got already to benefit both the college and ourselves. So the latest update I've got on that is that it will be the end of January when that will come around. When I wrote the report, I was just given the date of early in the year, because we write our reports, a little bit in advance. So the update I got today was it's going to be the end of this month, but I'm happy to give you any more details if you want.
Thank you.
Okay, the final question on the executive report is in section 2, and it's on the housing delivery vehicle. Councillor Branson.
And just to say, I'll keep it very brief actually, just to say I welcome the fact that we've got a housing development delivery company set up in December. I think that it's clear to us that there's big problem with housing in the UK, and it's nice to see that Middlesbrough is actually doing something positive about it. And I think that should be good.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody respond to that? Or no? Okay, thanks for that. Right, moving on. Agenda item 8, report of the Overview and Scrutiny Board. Chair?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that my report is there, but I would like to reiterate how important that scrutiny actually is. And on the back of that, the positive outcome of the health scrutiny you had with the health of Mr. Dryden, that we've now got 90 families for respite arrangements
that have been safeguarded, and I think it's really important. And I'd like to pass over to Councillor Dryden just to give you a quick overview of what actually happened. Because without this scrutiny, these respite for these families would not have happened. So if the floor's quite happy, I'll...
Yeah. Councillor Dryden. Thanks for that. Just to remind you, this has been going on for about 2 years. And it's a really good outcome for the families and the parents. The most severely disabled people I've ever met in my life. And it's 35 people in Middlesbrough access the bank for this service. The health scrutiny panel in Middlesbrough is unanimously supported, as have the Reproduction Council. The parents themselves fought a really hard battle. In this room last Tuesday, Judith Brown, who raised the parents, the Banfields parents group, came and told us the achieved, you see. So the CCG and corporate asked to have a meeting and said the current recipients of that service will keep what they have. That's 33 nights a year. It still means they still got to work 333 nights a year, 7 days a week, every year in, year out. So it's a fantastic outcome for these families. We will be vigilant in terms of how that's going to materialise, because there are families coming up who will need the service. We want to see the assessment criteria. There are social care screening panel. We've already brought that out of the work programme a year ago. We still have our document in the second state, asking them to review the decision. We will not withdraw on that. So this is a decision taken by the CCGs with the families, and we're thrilled for them. They need it and they deserve it. So I'd like to thank all the council, all the members of the health screening panel, who totally supported of the actions. I think the local media deserve credit for keeping this alive option as well, because it could quite easily become a bureaucratic exercise. 35 families in Middlesbrough isn't a great number. It could easily get lost. 90 families across Teesside isn't a great number. It could easily get lost in the media, especially with the shenanigans we've seen tonight. We've tried to steal the limelight. This is a true story, a true victory for their parents who battled very, very hard. And okay, the media deserve credit for making this a proper story. Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you. Can I just add to that and just say that was an absolutely fantastic, it was a very good committee, it was a fantastic outcome, and I couldn't be happier because I have some of those children in our ward. So I am absolutely delighted, and I thank Councillor Dryden for all the hard work that he put in, because he did put a lot of hard work in for it. And it was just brilliant, brilliant news when I heard it last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll be very brief. This is a victory for health scrutiny, this is a victory for parents. Our parole is still ongoing. We're still challenging the decision the CCG made. The CCG have made the right decision, and the parents deserve full credit for all the work they've done. And thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, coming on that report. Agenda item 9, Council Tax Support Scheme. Councillor Walker.
Keep going with the microphone. Thank you, Chair. I basically wanted to move this report to point out that there hasn't been any changes to the scheme from last year. We believe we have to publish the scheme every year. Just to remind people that the reason why we have this scheme is that in 2013 the government replaced the National Council Tax Benefit Scheme, which helps the most financially vulnerable people pass the responsibility on the councils with a reduction in funding, with the necessity that working age people who previously didn't have to pay council tax pay contribution for the first time. But there hasn't been any difference to the scheme from last year.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, can we agree the report?
Great.
Thank you. Agenda item 10, Council Tax Base. Councillor Walker again.
Thank you, Chair. This is part of the budget setting process. We're quite dry. The thing I would like to draw attention to is the due to the house building in Middlesbrough, the increased revenue that we now receive from council tax, without which there would be a need to make the equivalent amount of savings. And I think the budget report will have the cumulative amount of those savings over recent years. The other impact is that we now have a lower proportion of band aid properties. It previously, going back a few years ago, it was over 50%, and now it is below that amount. So must move the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Can we agree with the recommendations? Agree. Yes, thank you. Agenda item 11, urgent items. Not aware of any. 12, members' question time. There are none. Motion of 13, notice of motion, none received. 14, urgent motions, none received. 15, changes to the council and executive meetings. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. First of three for me this evening. Members have got in front of them a report just a couple of minor changes to the budget meetings that are taking place in March for the council and February for the executive, respectively. Unfortunately, due to the unavailability of key members of the executive, it's been necessary to rearrange the meetings. I trust members are comfortable with the motion.
Okay, can we agree those? Agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Agenda item 16, review of the Constitution. Mr. Roberts.
This is very much a tallying exercise. So members will find there are three elements to this report rather than three separate reports. So the first one is that the Corporate Parenting Board, with effect from the new municipal term, will become a full committee of council again. I think it's done the rounds between being a council committee, being an advisory body, being an advisory body to the executive. At the moment, the view from certainly the director from Children's Services is that it should be a full committee of council. So we're looking to reconstitute it as such. Members will find the terms of reference set out in the appendix, with effect from the AGM later this year. That will become a full committee of council. The second element of this is that there are some minor amendments to elements of the Constitution set out in Appendix 2. I've left them in a track changes way so that people can see what's being moved. Essentially, it's moving things around so that it's all in a more coherent way, and it's easier to find things. Finally, the third part is the Local Code of Corporate Governance. That is a document which is included in the Constitution, and changes to that document are reported to Corporate Affairs and Audit Committee. What we also need to do is amend that document within the Constitution. So what I'm suggesting here is that the current adopted version of the Local Code of Corporate Governance, which Corporate Affairs and Audit has approved, is now incorporated into the Constitution, and that subsequent changes to that document will simply be approved by Corporate Affairs and Audit. It has decision-making powers for the Council anyway, but I think it's best to be transparent with members and let them know that that's how it will be dealt with going forwards. Okay. Those are the three items that I have for you.
Councillor Young.
Yeah, just about the corporate parenting board, and just if you could confirm, will it be politically balanced?
Yes, it will be politically balanced. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? Can we agree the recommendations? Agree. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 17, monitoring officer, interim and ancillary arrangements. Mr. Roberts again.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a slightly old one for me. Members will be aware that I will be leaving the authority in early February, terms. And obviously, some needs a monitoring officer, so this is a report looking to designate a new monitoring officer for a period of 12 months, which will give the authority some time to plan what it wants to do long term. I also have a number of different roles, so the report sets out the designation for the head of legal services, the head of democratic services, the returning officer and the electoral registration officer. So to take those sort of one at a time, the head of legal services and the monitoring officer will be Samantha Dorchel, who is sitting in the corner behind you. The head of democratic services will be Sylvia Reynolds, as everybody's aware of. And then the returning officer and the electoral registration officer will be Tony Parkinson, the chief executive. That's the proposal from the report, looking obviously for a decision from members to endorse that with effect from the 12th of February.
Any questions, comments? Can we agree that? Okay. Yeah, calm down. Right, before I bring this meeting to a close, I am going to invite Councillor Walker to say one or two words. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. As the relevant executive member, and that's the Bryn's last meeting, I would like to extend my personal thanks to Bryn. I'm sure many of my colleagues will join me in this, for his many years of service to Middlesbrough Council. Because I've always found him to carry out his duties in a very professional manner, a courteous manner, with the utmost integrity, and surprisingly, amazingly at times, taking into account some of the difficult things that are thrown at him, invariably with a smile. I'd also like to congratulate Bryn on his career advancement in achieving promotion to a more senior post elsewhere. And I know some of my other colleagues will wish to echo my thanks to Bryn, and I'm sure some of you like to see him in person to thank him yourself before he leaves. Thank you.
Well, okay, and just very briefly before I bring the meeting to a close, I also would like to personally thank Bryn for all the help and support he's given me over the last few years. Yeah, it's been invaluable to have him sat by my side in the council chamber, certainly over the past 2 or 3 years when it's been quite challenging, shall we say, some of the circumstances. But I've always found him very helpful, always had a smile on his face. We've posted meetings, we've sat down, we've discussed what can we do better, what can we do next time, and I've always found his advice invaluable. So yeah, congratulations, Bryn. I think you've got a real good position to look forward to, good career advancement, and just thank you for everything. Cheers, Bryn.
In return, can I say it has been a pleasure and a privilege to serve this council for nearly 15 years, and I will miss an awful lot of people here. I thank you for your kindness.
You never needed the microphone.
Try not to.
Okay, right. That being the conclusion of all business, I'd now like to formally bring this meeting to a close. Now, as everybody is aware, we do have an extraordinary meeting immediately following this. I'm proposing we go straight into it. So, agenda item, welcome everybody to this extraordinary meeting of the council. And it is extraordinary. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence, and declarations of interest. We'll take them as read from the original meeting, yes? Right. Agenda item 3, the extraordinary meeting. We actually need the people who've moved it to speak to this before it can go ahead. Unfortunately, none of them are here at the meeting at the moment. That being the case, I will move that we close the meeting forthwith because we've got nobody to introduce it. Is everybody okay with that? Can we agree?
I think the centre of the meeting is clear.
Okay. That being the conclusion of all of this extraordinary meeting, and I'll bring that to a close. Thank you for your attendance tonight. What's been very challenging. Good night.